reached a point where it's become too painful to everyone, including the Saudis. The Saudis, as you know, a few weeks ago announced their 2030 strategy. They want to be forward-looking. They want to develop a state that is not reliant on oil only, with good international relations and so on. And for that vision to even start being debated in any form of objectivity, the first thing, they need to be out of war. I mean, they have to find an end to this conflict. And they've now found in a hard way that bombing from the air is not going to resolve the problem. They can still bomb for another 2 years and nothing will happen. What's happened with their campaign is that they've in fact run out of what I call A targets in the first few weeks, because Yemen did not have much to bomb in terms of strategic bases, missiles, etc., etc. All of those were taken out in the first few weeks.
There has been heavy loss of life in the latest of the Saudi-led coalition bombing raids on the Yemen capital, Sana'a. The capital's being held by Iran-backed Houthi tribesmen, and the Saudis and the Gulf states fear strengthening Iranian influence in the region. Nearly 6,000 people have died so far in the conflict, half of them civilians, according to the United Nations.
Now they have to think really hard, and the American intelligence has been really stretched to try and identify what is largely moving targets in the country. And that's when they started to make more and more mistakes and hit more and more civilians, which again is not in their interest. It is painful. I know that Saudis do not wish to be seen as the killers of civilians in Yemen. So it is very much in their interest to bring an end to the conflict at the moment. And the same applies to the Yemeni sides, Houthis and their allies, including even Ali Abdullah Saleh, in that they're under a lot of pressure internally now. When they first started moving out of Sada, they were relatively welcomed by the majority of the population. And that's the only way you can explain a group of militia to be able to take over the government. They did not have any real battle out of Sada all the way to Sana'a. But that is turning, the tide is turning against them at the moment, because they've been in charge for more than a year. People are fed up. There's scarcity of resources. There's no electricity, no water supply in the city. A lot of pressures in terms of maintaining salaries, payments, inflation rate, etc. And they started to find for themselves that governance is much more complex than they thought. It's not a tribal arrangement as they had in Sada. It's a much more complex operation. Added to that, of course, the so-called Iranian support turned out to be non-existent. I mean, Iran is sitting back in Tehran, just a little bit of rhetoric, and they are achieving quite a lot in return without having to step up their support to the Houthis or any other in Yemen. So these are all kind of factors that have now materialized over 1 year and is driving everybody to a compromise.